is the Managing Your Manager, the how-tos of managing up. I'm really excited about this workshop. I've given it a few times in the past, and one of my favorite parts is people just sharing their experiences, sharing what's going on with them and their workplace, and how they can just level up their skills. So this is going to be a quick run through of the presentation. But if you have any questions, always feel free to email me. I'd love to talk all things leadership, management, all those different things. So just a little bit about me. I am a husband, a brother, a son. My pronouns are he, him, his. Things I enjoy. I love plants, cooking, so foods and drinks. I love making cocktails and whatnot. Connecting with people, love learning about people's stories, laughing. Hopefully we'll do a little bit of that today. Being active, going on hikes, long walks, playing basketball. That's my favorite sport. I'm also an organizational psychologist, a leadership and career coach, and culture consultant. I actually started my own practice. It is called Common Culture Coaching and Consulting. And then I am also a podcast host. And my podcast is about having real conversations with the people I see every day. And that podcast is called Real Talk with Dumas. So let me tell you a little bit about Common Culture, about the company. Our mission is we exist to center the experiences of those who have been historically excluded and reimagine a more equitable workplace. Our dream, we have a dream that one day organizations will be run by equity-minded leaders who create positive societal impact. And then our values are humility, imagination, curiosity, equity, courage, and authenticity. And as you see in our mission, our dream, even in our values, equity is something that's innately in us, something that is very important to us, and it involves everything that we do. And so even though we do organizational development work, that is built on equity work, right? And creating more equitable organizations. And these are the intentions for today. So everyone's knowledge is valuable, everyone's perspective matters, and everyone is welcome to share. All right, so this is our roadmap of our time. So we're going to define managing up. We're going to look at managing up do's and don'ts, the benefits and challenges of managing up, and your career, what it has to do with your career, managing a difficult manager, and then we're going to have some time for takeaways, observations, and questions. And this, for recording purposes, we're probably not going to do that for this time. But if, like I said, if you have any questions, anything that comes up for you, feel free to reach out to me. All right, so this quote says, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. And this is a popular quote that goes around a lot. But there was a study that showed in 2018 by the Harvard Business, or by Facebook. And what they did was they wanted to put this quote to the test. They wanted to see if people were quitting Facebook because of the managers, or were they quitting because of any other reason. And what they found was that people were quitting because of the jobs, right? They loved their managers. They got along with their managers because Facebook puts a lot of energy and time and resources into finding great quality managers and training managers. So, but what they did find is that the managers were the ones that were creating these jobs, right? The managers, oftentimes what people were doing was not doing things that they were, had skills for. They weren't putting their, knowledge to use. They were just doing these jobs and they weren't being able to make connection to who they were as people. And so they left and found new, better jobs, which is probably what we've seen in the last year. So what I have done is I flipped that a little bit. I said, people don't quit jobs they love. They quit managers they hate. And hate is a strong word, but the visceral reaction that I've had from my coaching clients, from anecdotally from people that have experienced negative managers or bad managers, but also even my own personal experience. There have been places where I literally left because I had a manager literally holding me back, literally said, you are going to do this entry-level thing for a full year. And after that full year, we'll upgrade you to the next thing and upgrade you to the next thing. Like I was going to spend the rest of my life there. And that's not realistic. So that's my spin on that. So what is managing up? And simply managing up is about building relationships. But in a nutshell, managing up is a method of career development that's based on conscientiously working for the mutual benefit of yourself and your boss. And honestly, this is more not necessarily about somebody who is being managed or led. This actually has to do with interpersonal relationships, regardless of your standing within the company. Because if you do managing up well, then you actually create impact, not only for that interpersonal relationship, but also the team, the department, and the organization. There's ripples effects of managing up effectively. So managing up is all of these qualities here: communicating with your manager, patience, being honest about what you need, perspective taking, anticipating needs, being helpful, being flexible. Managing up is not avoiding work, rebelling, brown nosing, manipulating your manager. So managers, and this is something I just want to reiterate as we're talking about managers, because I feel like there is this idea about what management is, what leadership is, what companies' role in our lives are, what our jobs are in our lives. Managers do not own your time. They don't own your energy. They don't own your career. They especially don't own you. Managing up do's and don'ts. And I'll say, do not overrate or underrate the relationship building. So here's some do's for this here. So do communicate. That is incredibly important. That's why it's number one. You want to communicate with your supervisor or leader. Do get to know your supervisor. Have some pre-written questions to like understand them more. Do you know their communication style? Do they want emails? Do they prefer like once a week meetings, every other week meetings? Get to know your supervisor, because that'll actually help you understand how their expectations. Anticipate and be proactive. So I mentioned this earlier, but anticipating and being proactive. So like, for example, for meetings, if you have a meeting for in a one-on-one, why don't you have an agenda ready? Why don't you reach out to your supervisor and say, hey, I took the liberty of creating an agenda. I can go ahead and do this from now on. If you would like me to, is there anything else that we need to talk about that I can add on this? Just doing those small little acts is like incredible and shows, they can trust you, that you're ready to do something, that you're a go-getter. These are simple things you can do. And utilizing some skill that you may have. Do know the right way to discuss problems. If there is an issue that arises or something that you want to dialogue with them, maybe some feedback that you want to give, maybe run it past somebody first to kind of get an understanding, glean some perspective on how you're framing that, and then present it to your supervisor, because that could be incredibly helpful as you're navigating that. And you should be able to do this well if you're communicating with your supervisor. Be a well-rounded source of help. You're an incredible individual. You have all kinds of gifts and talents and skills. Put those to use for the supervisor, for the team, and see if you can just like utilize those things, right? All right, don't try to manipulate. Don't just be a yes person. Don't just be a brown noser. Avoid that kind of behavior. Be true, be honest, be you. Don't attempt to cover things up. Be honest about issues that come up and be expedient about it. If it happens, be on top of that and share that with your supervisor right away. They might be a little bit frustrated, annoyed. If they explode on you, you might not have a great supervisor. And go to HR. Get involved. Don't get involved in office politics. Don't get involved in office drama. It's not worth it. It's a big headache. You can vent, find some trustworthy people that you can vent with, but don't like spread it, gossip. Just, when you hear gossip, just whatever. Don't overstep your boundaries. Know the limits of your role. And if you think you can do more, have a conversation with your supervisor about it. Those are all beneficial ways, and be honest about it. Be very, very beneficial to be honest about, the boundaries that they have and the boundaries that you have about what you want your role to be on their team. Don't ignore feedback. If it's constructive, it helps your growth. It all can be helpful for you. Don't do it when you can't. If you cannot do it, do not do it. Don't just say yes because you want to be a people pleaser, right? Or if you need some additional support. Hey, I can do this and I want to support you, but I'm going to need a little bit of clarity, or can you point me in the right direction of somebody who can, support me in this as well? Benefits and challenges. Benefits, you'll be happier and more fulfilled in your role. It's great engagement. You'll increase your engagement in your work, career development, growth, more control over your work, improved work relationships. The list goes on. Challenges, knowing when to step up and step down. It's actually really difficult to kind of like find that balance, which again goes back to the communicate. What are areas that I can be support of? What are areas that like are probably, off limits for me to do? I'm good in this. Can this support the team in any way or support you in any way? Another challenge is dealing with uncertainty, taking initiative. Sometimes, you just got to, when anticipating and being proactive, sometimes knowing when to take initiative can be tough. So it's like a give or take and really like testing the waters. But I'm always going to go with over communicating with your supervisor, over communicating with your team and understanding that rather than under communicating. If you're ever in doubt, just ask. Managing up and your career. So you don't want to like be the dog chasing the car. When you are managing up, know what you want out of your career, know what you want out of that. Don't just chase after it. And when you finally have the room, you don't know what to say. There's a scene in a show, I think it's called Mythic Quest. Yeah, Mythic Quest. And she like, she had an entry-level position and she would talk about how, positions weren't unfair. She would talk about these gender roles, the patriarchy, all that yada, yada, yada. And it's satire. Trust me, I'm not saying that. But she actually had the CEO in a car for like 6 hours straight. And the only thing that she could talk about was like how her role was like unfair. And they made a joke of like saying like, you literally were in this car with me for 6 hours and no. She was in there for like 30 minutes. And then she spent like the last 5.5 hours not knowing what she really wanted, not knowing her goals or where she wanted to go next. And she had the person that could make it happen in the car. And so don't be the person in the car wanting to be annoyed or complain about your supervisor, but not know when you actually have like the ability to make change or have that ear of that person. Know what you want and go for it. Managing difficult managers. Okay, so I'm gonna keep this pretty simple because like this is like this part is, it just depends. It can be from manager to manager, and difficult can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But as I shared before, being honest and open about your boundaries, and if they continually violate those things, those are things of concern. Like and that's when I would start questioning, is this the right place for me? Is this the right manager for me? And probably not if they continue to violate boundaries that you have set and made abundantly clear. Are they about your career growth? Are you about your career development? If that's something that's important to you. If that's not something that's important to you, it might not matter at all. Can your manager take constructive feedback? That's a major one, because if anybody who's in a leadership position cannot take feedback or does not want to take feedback, that's a major red flag to me, that they think that they own this thing, that they can do it, that they're the sole owner of knowledge and wisdom. And that's a red flag to me. And if they can't take any constructive feedback, then you have to and after tried and true method, you're trying to have honest dialogue, you're trying to communicate, and it's just not working. Again, you can evaluate, is there somebody else that can be an advocate for you that might be on their same level, that can open their mind, so different things like that. But there are times where it's just going to be difficult of managing a difficult manager. And it may actually not be there might be other difficult situations going on there. Is there and speak quite candidly, is there racism existing there? Is there microaggressions? Is there of all kinds, racism, homophobia, transphobia, all those different things, sexism and all that. So just being aware and cognizant of what's happening in those situations. But yeah, if you have any questions or any concerns or any takeaways from there, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out to me. Would love to kind of connect with you. Here's my email. You can text that number and visit my website. I would love to connect with you further.